When did you realize that gut instinct was killing profitability in the industry?
What's often surprising them is they've set up their whole cost structure to support the most unprofitable segment of the market. And that's a rude awakening. 3% of the customers did 62% of the business. It was 15 people per store. If just 5 of those 15 left, the acquisition was no longer accretive or profitable.
I call people like that, I call them hostage takers.
Yep.
They're the high performer on the team that is, call it toxic, or difficult or countercultural, and everybody knows it, including the principal. But they don't want to make a change because they're afraid of what that will cost them. Today I've got Nick Maverick. He's the CEO and founder.
We provide predictive buyer intelligence to...
This is Heavy Hitters, and I'm Jay Lucas, a 30-year executive search veteran. And throughout my career, I've invested in the success of countless organizations. On this show, I interview industry-leading executives to highlight make-or-break strategies and tactics that drive performance. Ready to tackle some heavy lifting? Let's go.
All right, welcome today. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody or just say that this podcast isn't really about me and it's not about our guest. It's about you and our passion for providing you with insights in the industry that we hope will be a blessing to you. Today, I've got Nick Maverick. He's the CEO and founder of BiltData. He's an industry veteran in the heavy equipment industry. Nick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and BiltData and what role you guys play in the heavy equipment industry?
Absolutely. Well, Jay, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a blessing to the industry and setting the bar high for a standard of excellence.
Thank you.
I am, somehow it's happened. I got into the industry when I was 28. I'm now 56. And I had been working for Intel a million years ago, and Nations Rent was just getting started. It was a roll-up. And it was born about the same time as United Rentals. And that was the beginning of my career in equipment rental. Interesting enough, the Way of the Shepherd book that I sent you, heard of it from a guy named Don O'Neill, who built a couple companies in Texas and became president of Nations Rent. After I left Nations Rent, I worked for a division of Volvo Construction Equipment, Volvo Rents, for 10 years, serving the field. Mainly in North America, a little bit of Europe, but I headed up supporting the field in marketing, sales and marketing.
Okay.
Since forming BiltData, we provide predictive buyer intelligence to OEMs, dealers, no pure play rental companies yet, for no other reason other than certainly focusing on doing one thing well.
Right. So. And just getting started.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. If you don't mind, I'd like to maybe open with a quick prayer before we get started, before we jump in.
That would be amazing.
Awesome. Okay. Lord, I just want to say thank you for Nick. I want to thank you for his generous spirit. I thank you for all of the experience that he's going to share with us today. You know, we just pray that you'd bless him and BiltData, that he would be your face in this business, in this industry. And we want to pray for the people who are listening today, that you would be a blessing to them and that you would give us the wisdom and the insights and the encouragements to make our work a form of worship. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Jay, you made my day.
Oh, good. Good.
If you don't mind me adding on to that, because it's a good segue.
Yeah.
I don't advertise this much, but Don O'Neill probably had the most finest expression of Christian values that I've seen. Mm-hmm. And if people don't believe in that, they can certainly believe in the golden rule. And BiltData is named after him. It was a rock in his backyard, which was actually Matthew 7:24. So Peter built his house on a rock. So BiltData is built to serve. And so that's the intention or in the prayer behind the company, is to be helpful to the industry. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, so we've known each other for about a year. And if I had to characterize you using one word, I would say generous or gracious. Gracious is probably even more accurate. Is that a conscious decision?
I think it is certainly gratitude. I mean, it was a million years ago. I shouldn't say that. Probably 10 years ago, Jay, when I realized everything in my life has been given to me. Everything. Meaning, people can say, sure, put in the time and the work, but I'm going to say grace, a chance, a second chance, an opportunity to listen when nothing's being said. So I would say it first comes from just spirit of gratitude.
Yeah.
Life is a gift, and serving each other is a gift.
Yeah.
And it's a choice. I am far from knowing it all. So it is out of true, genuine gratitude.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Yeah. All right. So you've been in private equity-backed businesses, Fortune 500 corporations, and now you're self-employed. You run your own business. What have you learned about self-employment that you didn't expect?
Well, very interesting. I would say it's the lack of control, Jay. When I did work in most of the businesses I worked for were private equity backed, and they're very well resourced and were able to execute a long-term plan. They were mainly growing through acquisition or funding their organic growth, a little bit of both. As a new business, now we're about a year and a half old. I would say it is something that I will say is getting used to is the variability in the market. There are some folks in the equipment industry that do very, very well, some that have portions of their business that do well, and some that are not doing well. And then there's others that are, trying to lift their ship back up. So it's very interesting to look at the industry at this day and time to see almost three distinct segments. And that's been, took me a little while to wrap my head around that and how we can serve that.
Yeah. All right. So you've written a book, Contrarian Marketing.
I did.
What made you decide to write a book?
Well, the real backstory is I was bored. I was working for Volvo corporately. I was bored in a meeting.
No offense, Volvo.
No offense. It was purely my misbehavior. And it was just another meeting. And I wrote down an outline. And I think one is, I want to be clear, it's not my book. Everything that's in that book was taught to me people by Don O'Neill, Phil Petroselli, Rich Gabe, Barry Natwick, a long list of people, Bud Howard. It's a collection of experiences. That said, it is a good book, humbly, as a field practitioner's guide about how marketing can support salespeople.
Okay.
It is very, very good. It is a tactical plan. And what's in the book is what BiltData does. The foundation being that having a plan, and some people a fancy word for a plan could be called data. And it means understanding what you're trying to accomplish and break it down into numbers that people can actually understand and act on.
Right.
So you're not speaking over the field's head. You're listening to how hard their job is. And so the book is about that. It's about, for a marketer, it's about, I believe, how to be most effective, what to avoid. And there's sort of lots of temptations in this industry about where to misapply capital. And if you're supporting a sales force or you're a sales manager, it's about how to achieve your goals more consistently by picking your customers before they pick you, before the market goes sideways, and breaking things down into what we call the law of small numbers, actually numbers you can understand, names specifically.
Okay. So contrarian, I had to look that up. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but I just wanted to look it up. Acts or thinks in a way contrary to popular or prevailing wisdom. So with that, what's the most contrarian thing that you believe about selling and heavy equipment that most dealers would disagree with?
Let me practice an answer. So I would say what is most surprising to people is their understanding of their own strengths, and it's revealing to them. And I'll give an example. Whether these numbers may specifically differ, but I'll just go with it. At Nations Rent and at Volvo Rents, 3% of the customers did 62% of the business.
Wow.
11% did 83%. For large dealerships that we've worked for or that I've worked for in the past, whether it's Deere, Volvo, Cat, others, you see similar in very, very intense concentrations. Might be 10% to 80%. So in many cases, people aren't aware of where they're succeeding and why. The other most surprising thing to them is cost is on everybody's mind. I'd say, I don't know if it's more so today. It certainly is on people's minds today with rising costs. And when we enter discussions with people, they often want to hear, the owner wants to hear, how can I reduce my costs? Well, very surprising to them is how much, you and I have talked about, how much capital, how much effort they're putting in to support the 10 or 20% of their customers that create 80% or more of their profit. What's often surprising them is they've set up their whole cost structure to support the most unprofitable segment of the market.
Yeah.
And that's a rude awakening to them.
Do you think that's industry specific? Is that a heavy equipment thing, or is that true for all industries?
I can't answer that. I wish I could tell you.
I think about it for us, and I think look, we've got a pretty narrow focus. Obviously, we are in heavy equipment recruiting, but that's a pretty big piece of pie. And how do we segment those customers so that for us, the common denominator of our success is partnership. It's not that you're a heavy equipment company or a dealer or a manufacturer or a rental company, or that you're a HR person or a, VP of sales or, a VP of product support or whatever. It's really that partnership mindset. That takes a lot of effort to figure out who has that mindset, who wants to create a business that is pro-employee, but still pro-profit, and you got to kiss a lot of frogs,
Yes.
But I imagine with data, you guys have some really good insights that probably make that a bit easier.
We do. In many respects, we're just common sense at scale, right? I want to be clear. And we don't charge for sharing what other people have shared with us by any means. And the common sense at scale is you can de-risk at least 80% of your income statement. I'm going to call it your pro forma. And I'm going to speak to revenue and gross margin or EBIT, earnings and taxes. You can de-risk 80% of it by planning the 15 names per name it, store, salesperson, market. That will drive 63% of your business. You can de-risk it layer by layer by layer.
Sort of the how do you eat an elephant approach.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you can get to 80%, I'd say, with 30 to 50, again, name it, names per salesperson, store, market, ...
Yeah.
And you can then, it's very important, because when you don't, you can ride through these cycles easier. And the cycles are brutal. You hear them right now, manufacturers, tough time selling equipment.
Yeah.
Prices are up. People don't want to pay it. Used equipment's up, rentals up. And you see 0% interest rates. You see OEM subsidizing product going into rental fleets. And it's very, very reactive. Somebody asked a very, very good question recently to a LinkedIn post about a market. He said, well, how do you can identify a market hotspot, but how do I know how much fleet to put in there? I'm going to say skip to the end. The real answer is all you can do is de-risk that decision. So if you're looking to plan your next year, you can plan and know the 15, 20, 30 names that you want to grow with where you're adding value. And sure, pursue 31 through 100, but secure your base first. And when you do, you will be more profitable, and that keeps your team together. It builds better cultures. It builds better families.
Does it change? So you have 10% that make up 80% of the revenue. 10% of customers make up 80% of the revenue. And this is the data that you found. Pretty consistent, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Does that 10% change? I mean, can you woo another customer over from the side of being in the 90%? Is that possible?
You can. 100%. Yeah. And it just means layers of, call it, strategies. And I want to just, if I may, pull back a second. And the statistics will kind of spell it out. The 80-20 rule, I didn't create it. It was fun. It was based on Vilfredo Pareto in 1897, who studied wealth distribution. Now it's cliche.
Right.
It's people say 80-20, but they don't know the meaning behind it.
But goodness, it's still so applicable.
Yeah. And in the US, 4% of all businesses employ more than 10 people. 4% employ 96% of all workers. In construction, 17% of all contractors have 10 or more employees, and they employ 77% of the people. Flip it, and you could say, well, who do you already know the outcome. And so of the 17%, which one do you want on your list? And you pick your number. If it is 17 people, and to your point, maybe you go into the next segment. You're looking at the 18 through 35. Want to add them to your list.
Yeah.
Very extreme focus yields better, more happy customers and higher share of wallet
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've been a CEO, VP, director, you've worked across industries. What is the hardest leadership lesson that you've had to learn?
The hardest one is very easy for me. It was a sales guy. His name is Keith. If he's listening, Keith wrote us. Keith, you said this to me. He's a very, very humble, sweet soul. And Keith said to me, we would partner up. I was in marketing. He was in sales, a great sales leader. And he'd say, you don't listen. And I thought I listened. Was saying to me, because I had to ask him, is you don't listen when people say nothing, to their silence, or you're not listening to their inaction. And from that, I, and others, I'm going to say at Volvo, we applied it at scale, developed a capital allocation model that, and what I mean by that is caught money, and took sales and marketing money and we pushed it to the field when they executed a strategy that focused on the 3% that did 62, the 11 that did 83. And there was true alignment where we built a listening system is what we built. It wasn't always just collaboration. It was collaboration supported by money, joint funds to achieve profitability within a second. Yeah. So that was...
So this is where I think a lot of companies that I've seen anyway, at least as a recruiter, because, companies will come to us and they'll ask us to hire, help them hire a specific candidate or to find a specific candidate. And one of the things that I notice about recruiting in our industry, recruiters aren't always looked at as trustworthy. And so I've spent a fair amount of time sort of analyzing why is that? And what I've seen pretty consistently is that there's a huge segment of companies that don't plan strategically, that aren't sure how to align their marketing strategy with their sales strategy, with their IT strategy, etc. And so what you're saying is by deploying that capital in a way that makes sense, you're basically coming up with marketing strategy that aligns with what's the overall goal of the organization. And that to me is probably where most businesses really have the greatest opportunity to improve, which kind of really supports the whole reason you're in business, is to provide them with the data, the insights, so that they can then develop a strategy that will help them capitalize on whatever's going to help them be successful. For us, it's 5-star reviews. Like, I mean, sure, revenue and profit and all that stuff's really important. But, at the end of the day, for us, we feel like, look, the revenue and profit will take care of itself if we just take care of the customer. So our focus is 5-star reviews. So all of our strategy is geared towards that. But great point, just listening.
Yeah. And what I've heard you say is when you've got a great reputation in recruiting because you're truly an advocate for the companies and the candidate, and it's brilliant. You've mentioned an OEM where you do call their placement. You are their
the recruiting department, adjunct recruiting department. Yeah,
it's so you're not working on a transaction basis. You're working strategically, and you're bolted right onto their goals.
Right.
What's interesting is when it comes to call it building a plan. If this industry, let's speak to OEMs or dealers, and are looking to grow profitably, another way to say it is avoid a contraction, is just look at where they're allocating, where they're spending their time, and if maybe their time is their money. So if they have they do have substantial sales forces in the field. They have trucks and computers and insurance and uniforms and T&E and on and on and on.
And human, capital.
Human capital.
I mean, just the salaries. I mean, it's oftentimes payroll is the biggest expense on the P&L.
Huge. And per salesperson, you could run the math a couple of ways, but they're spending fully loaded $300,000 to $400,000 per salesperson, and fully loaded.
Yeah.
And so they're already making the decision of where they're planning their money, and they're supporting those people with systems and processes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hopefully, whether or not those systems and processes are good is probably debatable, right?
That's correct. Yeah. Therein lies the opportunity to take opinion out of how to build a high-functioning organization and build it based on the law of small numbers.
All right, you have a tagline, "In God we trust, all others bring data." When did you realize that gut instinct was killing profitability in the industry?
Great. So it was a rude awakening. When I was I was 28 years old, I joined Nations Rent. Nations Rent was funded by a great entrepreneur who's now deceased named Wayne Huizenga. And Nations Rent was born right around the same time as United Rentals. United Rentals was founded by Brad Jacobs, an amazing entrepreneur, still living, now in the roofing industry. And Nations Rent did 50 acquisitions pretty quickly and did many things well, and in many respects didn't. And it clearly didn't, because it ultimately went into Chapter 11. Brian Rich and Baupost took it out of bankruptcy, recapitalized the debt, and sold it to Sunbelt. And people say, why? Well, from my small perspective, I get to work on a lot of things, because I worked as the right hand or left hand, depends how you count, to the chief operating officer. So I worked on every project that the 40-year-old vice presidents didn't want to do. One of them was customer concentrations. And 3% of the customers did 62% of the business. It was 15 people per store. If just 5 of those 15 left, the acquisition was no longer accretive or profitable. Just 5. And so
risky,
and also quite interesting for a
think about it. That's
OEM
1/3 and no longer accretive. That's a small number to spoil a deal.
Correct. And what happened? The local owners, the great companies like Don O'Neill's former company called A1, and there were many that Nations Rent acquired. It took these very personalized support systems of the 15 people, the servant-based leadership of your top customers. And it said, well, no, I'm not going to give Jay 37-day credit terms. I'm going to cut them to net 15 because it's good for our cash flow. And we're not going to open those same hours. We're not going to treat our employees as well to incent them to answer the phone after hours. And what happened is the customer noticed it was a different experience, and they left. They voted with their feet. They said, well, you know what? I can shop a bunch of places, and I'm going to. And if they just 5 of them left, it was unprofitable. So the company, in essence, in many respects, died from internal bleeding.
Yeah, so
these were not visible wounds.
We back up again and talk about organizational strategy and how that breaks down into talent strategy and IT strategy and marketing strategy, et cetera. This is an example where corporate policy is now misaligned with the overall objective of the organization. I mean, most businesses, let's assume that their primary objective is to be profitable, to grow and to be profitable. Yet they create policy that misaligns with achieving that.
100%. And they, this probably 1,000 times better than I do. They can't relate to the incentive. And as Charlie Munger would say, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome.
Yeah.
And you could flip that around and say, show me the lack of the incentive and you can guess the outcome.
Yeah.
So if this industry, you deal with it, you hire and place very thoughtful, for very thoughtful organizations, very thoughtful people. It's if a very talented, I believe there's a lot there. I've met mostly very, 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 very bright people. The people that haven't met that haven't been bright are the ones that either fell on their head or did consume drugs, right? Or something. Very few. So I'm going to say we're all, for the most part, we're bright enough.
Right. Yeah.
What happens is these cultures evolve over time where the team member doesn't have a clear incentive.
What's in your opinion, or what have you seen, being both an employee and having lived that and having now been a consultant and watching it from the outside in? What's the incentive? Is it money? Is it compensation? Is it recognition? What is it?
You know what? I think you might know better than me. I believe I can answer you since you asked. I believe it's achievement of a job well done. So definition of the goal. And where people feel like they're working as a team. Don O'Neill and his companies didn't necessarily, and wasn't close to the insides of his business, but I'm going to say, as I understand it, didn't overly incent people. They had shared goals. That's certainly what he believed in. and they became a winning team together.
And when you say incent, you mean financially.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's different types of incentives. I mean, just recognition alone is a huge motivator for people.
Said. Yeah.
Without using a name or names, can you walk through a specific client that you've worked with and maybe that aha moment that they realized their data was broken?
So we're going with, call it a scenario where they learned about themselves. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
so
that moment that, the scales were sort of, had fallen from the eyes, so to speak, to use a biblical reference.
Yes. Yeah. One was a big brand dealer that was in many, many businesses outside of their core brand that they represented.
Okay.
And so they had an earth moving operation, and they had 4 or 5 other businesses, one of them pure play rental operation. I'd say a substantial.
So not brands, but businesses within the business.
Yeah, they had one brand at one dealership that was one business, and then segregated other businesses that were shared ownership, but different, not marketed under the OEM's brand.
Got it.
One was a pure play rental company, by example. Another one was a material handling business. Another one was ...
Right.
And
typical of what I see for large dealerships.
Yeah.
They become, somewhat, I don't want to call it fragmented because it kind of has a negative term, but, you can dilute your focus by trying to, put your arms around too many things.
Right.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
So you could have an on-highway division and a construction equipment division, a material handling division. Is that bad? Can you have all of those and a rental division? Can you have all of those and still be great?
I haven't. I personally have found doing one thing well is all I can do.
Yeah.
2, I'm forced to do 2 things. I might be 80% as effective at doing 2 things individually, or 2 things as opposed to one thing. I can be 100% effective.
Right. Like I can't sing and clap at the same time.
I can't do many things. So what was it? So in this business, the ownership was retreating into their real estate. Okay. So subpar profitability, and they were looking at, and you hear it, I'm going to own the real estate because that is going to appreciate faster than, call it, the cost of living, inflation.
Right. It's a stable investment.
That's right. I'm going to get my real estate to be my return.
Okay.
I'm being a little simplistic. And what got them into it was beginning to understand their marketing spend, and they thought they could be more effective in how they marketed. And
not real estate.
Not real estate. So, the situation is ownership was beginning to get subpar profitability, had reconciled into running this thing as a way to monetize real estate investments. Because their operating entity wasn't producing a prodigious amount of cash. Arguably, they got a better return in real estate than putting into their operating businesses, their dealerships.
So really, the core business was simply a mechanism for them to be able to invest in real estate.
That's where they retreated to.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they were seeing their dealership profitability decline. Grumpy culture, people were fighting. There were factions. The owner felt that the enterprise was acting almost as a union, kind of collective bargaining.
Interesting.
Felt that, I'm going to say they could not apply leverage on their employees that they employed, because they felt that if they did, they would, quit in droves.
Yeah, right.
Business.
So fear was keeping them from doing what they really knew to be the right thing to do.
Correct.
I see that so often. I call people like that, I see it in sales a lot. I call them hostage takers.
Yep.
They're the high performer on the team that is, call it toxic or difficult or countercultural, and everybody knows it, including the principal. But they don't want to make a change because they're afraid of what that will cost them.
Right.
But they're not thinking about what it's costing them to keep that person.
Right.
Crazy.
And so the owner, the project involved, started off by starting and looking at their marketing spend.
Mm-hmm.
And when you dove into the customer data,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to, from memory, about 10% of the customers did 83% of the business. Again, slightly different ratio.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that there's an imbalance. And the marketing spend, because that was sort of the genesis of the project, 100% of the marketing spend went to the 80% of the clients that they actually weren't targeting.
Wow.
100%. And it gets worse. The SG&A, the expense. So I shipped you $1, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
Before it got into your hand, 50 cents of that went to administrating that dollar, right? It's actually was worse than a government. Like,
wow.
The government might be more efficient if it didn't steal it, by the way. The government might have been more efficient in getting more of that dollar in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So it was shocking to them because if we come back to data, why did they need anybody? Did they need BiltData to tell them that? No. What was interesting is that there was so much obfuscation behind the quote unquote data and getting information that I'm going to say there was like systemic either incompetency or frankly deception, right? You can choose it, but it was deliberate. It took a lot of intelligence to hide very simple math from ownership. And I think, that in itself diagnosed the problem. They were, had a substantial sales force with lots of technology. I call it every technology and system on the planet and every person in the seat to push those buttons. But nobody was accountable for supporting the field with, forget the word data. How about customer information?
Right.
Or prospect information? So
what would be an example of prospect or customer information in that example?
It would be information was in their dealer business system, which is all transactional for the most part.
So like what kinds of machines they have, what type of construction they do, that kind of stuff?
Correct.
How many employees they have?
No, not even that.
Okay.
So that information would not get into the salesperson's hands. They'd say, here's the keys to your truck, go sell.
Right.
So the company was almost sales prevention with its own employees, with its own salespeople. They, of course, had CRM, but it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because management garbaged it up with jobs that CRM doesn't do.
Right.
It went into reporting and all these fancy terms like APIs and perfect data.
Mm-hmm.
So almost on every component, even their net promoter score system, which is awesome. I don't know. CRM's awesome.
Yeah.
So is net promoter score.
Well, I think software in itself, like a gun, it's benign. It's the user that makes it.
That's right.
So I've always said technology is only as good as its user.
Yeah.
And so understanding how to apply that technology, but specifically, how do we configure that technology and the processes that support its application to the alignment of the organizational strategy, which again cascades down into marketing strategy and sales strategy, et cetera.
I'm going to say the founder of the business who was deceased, people knew this name locally.
Yeah.
And so they'd call this person's son every now and then and say, you're not acting like it did under your father.
That's got to sting.
It was true. Which is they had stripped out the entrepreneurial spirit of the local ownership.
Yeah.
They gave up their one advantage. It's a huge advantage, huge advantage over any big company. Today, those big companies are United Rentals, the Sunbelt, Hertz. There's some very, very big dealerships. There's some very large publicly owned dealerships. And so the notion of local ownership was left on the cutting room floor, which is this entrepreneurial, we listen to our customers, our market. And it was lost because they had lost their focus on understanding the small amount of people these layers of growth, securing their base, designing all of their support systems to support that base. We all travel a lot. So if you were, the hotel industry does a great job, gold, platinum, titanium, and what's beyond it, right? And you
Diamond,
do get treated differently, right? You do. And it's so elementary. It doesn't mean you treat the other people poorly at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it goes back to, what are we really here for? Having a long range plan and being able to say, okay, well, 5 years out or 10 years out, what really do we want our business to look like? And then reverse engineer it. It's that Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind, and you begin to put the infrastructure in place to be able to achieve that. And it's not like you just decide all of a sudden, like, here's my perfect recipe. It's iterative. You try things and they don't work, and you figure out why, and you work on fixing that, and then you see new opportunities and you capitalize on those, and eventually, over time, you're in essence getting better and better. You're building more muscle, so to speak, organizational muscle.
Yeah, I love that. Begin with the end in mind. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And try it, fix it, do it again.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Right.
Super, super smart.
I think, I don't know this to be true, but I'll speak for myself, because I've been in business 22 years, and for such a long time, I missed opportunities because I didn't have a long range plan. I didn't really have, what am I here for? What am I trying to achieve? And, it wasn't until we began to build or implement a strategic planning methodology, we use traction, that we began to sort of systematically, I call it sort of like a remodel. So take a house, when you remodel, we stripped everything down to the studs and have slowly begun to rebuild the business based on what it is we've agreed is our purpose. A lot of people, they don't want to do that because it highlights failure, and people don't like failure. And so they'd rather just bury it, sweep it under the rug. It's crazy, but
it's very personal.
I can't think of another reason why somebody wouldn't want to aggressively find all your faults and not shrink because of those, but actually begin to put your arms around them, fix them, and then celebrate that, over and over again. It's crazy. All right.
I think it's smart. I like what you're saying. I think the notion of it's easier, I believe. There's sort of potential energy that's within your own people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can unlock that through incentives, and I love the one you said, incentive could be a great culture. A culture of kindness, a culture of golden rule. Mm-hmm. Yes, it can be a true financial incentive. Yeah. It could be time with your family. Mm-hmm. It could be a lot of things, but where they can actually realize that incentive. What if you didn't make money and you always got punched in the face when you went to work and got blamed for things? That happens.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. And that 5 dysfunctions of a team, Patrick Lencioni, kind of first dysfunction is trust. And trust is making it okay to make a mistake. That when somebody fails, that your first reaction isn't to just punish that person. Because then what incentive would somebody have to want to be bold and trying something new? Now, I'm not saying that that's a free pass for people to make all kinds of crazy decisions. You have to make evidence-based decisions. But there are a lot of companies where leadership does not endorse creative thinking and problem solving. It's true. I think you had said at one point, you've got one client, it's a John Deere dealer. With your system, with your insights, they are now able to action 8 times faster. So I'm kind of curious, what does that actually look like? And just your sales reps day to day, how does that manifest? Yeah.
We now have 2 Deere, not that it matters, but we pray to keep growing by supporting that great dealer network. what it was I'm going to say through the grace of God, we earned the client. It's one of those, in other instances, we didn't earn it. I promise you, Dave, whenever I've tried to do something, for the most part, it hasn't turned out. But they went from a dealer business system way off in the future. John Deere has something planned. I'm sure it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a transactional, frankly, more of an accounting system.
Okay.
Where they can close the books than it is a system to support their sales organization. Mm-hmm. We're trapped with sort of not only the limitations of a transaction system, has nothing to do with whether it's a good system or bad system. The transaction information isn't brought up to the customer level. So they had to do the hard work to say, oh, I get all this transactions. Who are my 10% of customers that do blank? Who are the next 10 that do blank? Next 10.
So what does the sales team do now that they have that information? How different is their day to day?
They can plan. They did their first strategic planning session ever when I'd say 1 month after working with them. Mm-hmm. They work with a very well-known, very highly regarded sales trainer, and he invoked a strategic planning template, and they could populate that template of who are the customers I want to grow, my share of wallet with, who are my conquests, who are the names, the template. If you saw it, it's actually very elementary, and that's its brilliance.
Who was in that meeting? Was it the entire sales team, or was it just the sales leadership?
I wasn't there. So my assumption was it was the sales trainer, sales leadership, and I presume the owner of the company.
Yeah.
The salespeople now could get their hard-earned customer data, so they could be more efficient. The sales leader, very similar titles, but I'm going to say the person overseeing sales as opposed to somebody matrixing into the ownership. Mm-hmm. He would say the way we used to do it was drive around, and this guy was a fighter. He's like, the way we succeeded was by not going home. Like, those are his words. And he said it in so many words, missed a lot of dinners.
So you mean before?
Before.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, without the insights, I think you have to work harder. I think data is a sort of lubricant.
Right.
It's supposed to ease the work.
Yeah. And we score the data, which is a fancy word for prioritize it. Mm-hmm. You did incredible preparation for this, and I thank you. So helpful for me, even to go back through and relearn, right? Yeah. To re-practice, understand these stepping stones that enable this conversation. Mm-hmm. But they can see their best customers. They can see the 10% that do 70, the next 10 that do 10. I call it skinny legs because they have a very big business where they do a great job serving with, in their case, their target market, mm-hmm. their VIPs. Mm-hmm. I want to say it depends on the salesperson, but it's roughly 10% do 80% of revenue, sales, rental, and product support. Then it drops off a cliff.
Right.
Like, why do I say skinny legs? As a young man, I lifted weights early. I never was like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I never did my legs. So to this day at 56, I still have skinny legs, right? Nothing I can do. And I don't want to go to the gym as much as I used to, but it,
and who loves doing legs?
I didn't, but, so what they can do now is instead of buying a lottery ticket to start their day, and, we know how lotteries work out. Instead of buying a lottery ticket, now the salesperson can plan their day strategically. But it means more than that. It means their leadership can trust them. And if you flip that around, it means they can have a shared outcome. And so now they can partner up in delivering value to the customers. Mm-hmm. Transcends data. It allows the salesperson to really fully utilize their talents. So if they're going to talk to a prospect, they can sell total cost of ownership. They can sell uptime. They can sell, call it value add. They can make a much stronger value proposition other than my wheel loader has 4 wheels.
Right.
4 tires. And a lot of equipment is sold on sort of Me Too attributes, and it gets into discounting. And that game has not turned out very well for the industry. There's a reason that rental's been growing faster for a long period of time, and there's a reason that used equipment is going faster than new. And they used to be, today they're a third.
Mm-hmm.
So as a percentage of the U.S. economy, 0.2, 0.2, and 0.2. New should be, you look at the amount of technology on these machines, new, it should be higher, in my opinion.
Right.
People can argue that. Depends on the segment, but
yeah. All right. So can you tell me a story of a particular client that you worked with that was initially skeptical about data, but became a believer?
Yeah.
What changed their mind? What was that thing that got them to swallow the hook?
I'll do my best to answer. CEO of another dealership, private equity owned, right? So how did that happen? You can guess how that happened. And they're overcoming some of their past. Let me say that.
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO was very skeptical, ironically, like a depressed person, that he knew he wasn't supporting his field organization with information that could help him succeed. So what do? They're beating these guys with sticks, not carrots. And he would say to me, and it still drives me nuts, but it reflects sort of one of the notions of listening. He'd say, well, Nick, how do I know people are going to use this system? Now I can't say back to him, well, you weren't providing him with tools to go fishing before. Now you're giving him fishing pole and bait. So presumably this new situation is better than the other one, but his commentary is fair. How do I know my people are going to use it? Right. If I invest in BiltData, how do I know my people are going to use it?
Yeah. So this could be that capital allocation that you referred to that doesn't yield a return.
Yeah. And what happened is when we go above and beyond the data, we do talk to salespeople and support them.
Okay. So you're getting both objective and subjective data points.
100%. Yeah. And when we start talking to salespeople and supporting them, treating them like the customer, they start succeeding. They can increase their scale, their efficiency. And the president or the CEO began to see a return, and his mood shifted.
Mm-hmm.
I presume his investor group stopped lifted some of the pressure off of him.
Right.
I'm not suggesting it was us at all. All we did was help facilitate unlocking potential energy embedded in these people and treating them with respect.
Mm-hmm.
It's disrespectful to hire an employee and not give them the tools to succeed. We know how that's going to end up.
Yeah.
It's going to end up in some sort of got lucky or a fight. So that removed the scales from his eyes. And then we kept listening to them. And I can say rarely are we ahead of the client, but they were looking to expand. They said, do you have rental data on other markets? And we spent a lot of time analyzing over 100 million transactions where we've now identified what people rent and what they own by every SIC in the country. And so they can now evaluate a new territory by looking at, he can see the degrees of freedom by being organized.
Yeah. So you go from skeptical to bought in to how do I capitalize on our existing business opportunities to now looking at opportunities outside of their current market.
That's correct.
So really pressing in.
Yeah. And, go back to the prayer, you could build your house on a rock.
Yeah.
That rock is who we are. My promise to you. And most of the major earth moving or heavy dealerships are making a promise of uptime and TCO. When you make that promise, you can't make it to everybody.
Yeah.
Because not everybody values it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's the 17% that account for 77% of the outcomes.
Yeah. All right. So you talk about participation rates a lot. Explain why a dealer could be growing revenue, but still losing the market share war.
I had to go, if you saw me go back, my eyes rolled back. I had to dig deep,
Right.
Jay.
Yeah.
I would say what I've seen is the whipsawing of the market, right? Now, people can say tariffs caused this year's disruption, but there was last year and there was the year before. And by the way, you could have seen tariffs coming if you really, some people did. I heard some OEMs planning ahead. They knew that when there was a change in the administration, that this was a high likelihood. This was a overseas OEM. But what I've seen is for dealerships, then they would say, we got to grow rental. And they then allocate fleet into the DORF, which is a great name, dealer-owned rental fleet. And they push fleet into there and not do true rental, not true rent-to-rent. Essentially, it's leases, right? Short-term leases that's labeled as rental to deploy the assets in the market. And what, in many cases, how that
with
may
the intent
end up
to sell the machine,
with the
so like a
intent
rent to own.
But the intention is almost gaming the books. The intention is to grow revenue. Say sales are bad. The OEM's pushing us to rent. We need to rent. We need to be in this quote unquote rent to rent business. We're going to be. You can't just form a rental business overnight.
Right. No,
So
it's capital
they go into the
intensive.
Capital intensive, and it involves having more than just one asset class.
Right.
You need to fill the
Yeah.
customer share of wallet
Right.
with the air compressor.
Right.
The stuff you don't want necessarily lifts.
Light towers,
So you can rent
compressors.
the earth moving. You can get into the 15 or 20 items that satisfy the work they need to do. So they can grow revenue in the interim by forcing things into rental. That ultimately will grow revenue, but could become a liability because it wasn't planned. It just said, shit, we got it. Tariffs are here.
Yeah.
New equipment's high. The buyer's pausing. Let's rent. And their rental answer was effectively a low car payment. And it wasn't it was a reactive strategy. And it's not bad, right? You had to do something. By the way, NationsRent did that. It didn't accrue for depreciation. So, depreciation in equipment is a real cost of goods. And so it was playing, I don't want to say playing games. That's not fair. I don't think it properly accounted for depreciation. So when it went to sell or dispose of assets, in many cases, it was upside down. It's a risky game.
Yeah.
It's,
I was going to ask, what do you do with that asset when it's no longer being leased, so to speak?
Somebody's going to get surprised. You can get out of it if you're lucky, but it's risky.
Yeah.
It's hidden leverage is what it is. So that's how you can grow revenue and not necessarily grow your profitability.
Yeah. I learned the hard lesson of chasing unprofitable revenue. It wasn't until I really began to understand gross margin and operating expense that I realized, oh, wow, I can actually generate less revenue more profitably if I just do these things. So that's the chasing the, 80% of your customers that generate 10% of your revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, so private equity loves this industry right now. They're rolling up dealerships and rental companies. There's a lot of consolidation taking place. How does data change the game for both the PE-backed consolidators as well as the family-owned dealerships?
Great question. So private equity, every situation's different, so I'll just go tell you what's going through my mind. I was sure the investment thesis is, I've heard it. Some of these businesses are called fat, dumb, and happy, right? At least, PEs can be a little punitive, or PE gets a bad name. Like everything in life, a portion of the folks are awesome.
Right.
A portion of the folks want to, rob and insult the earth and burn everything down, right? Screw you.
I don't think they set out with that intention, but just like a bad business owner. I mean,
I think two things attract them today. One is many of these dealerships And OEMs are carrying very high expense structures where it's grown over time. Like I call it my mother's garage, where, just put it in the garage, garage before you can't walk through it anymore, which is okay because she doesn't have a car anymore. But it becomes my mother's garage. So they know they're carrying a lot of expense, but didn't have the courage to cut it. And it's accrued over time. And the second one is they're looking at the installed base of assets and a largely abandoned machine population. So in any given market, depends on how you look at it. If you go through 10 years of data, at least 55% of the market is used in trading hands, right? And I went back to a third. Used is about 0.2% of the U.S. economy. New is 0.2, rentals 0.2. Rental is going faster than rentals 1, used is 2, sales is 3. So they're looking at that, and you know this, forgive me please cut me off. They're looking at the new population and, you clip the coupon of quote unquote product support. That works. The used population, in many cases, those assets are, when I say abandoned, the dealer loses sight of them. A lot of them are coming from the very large rental fleets.
Is it like obsolete parts?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So they see a population that could become very accretive if they can recapture it. The used.
Yeah, but you have to have the systems and processes to have the awareness.
You do.
That something's aging or, obsolete.
That's right.
And then you got to figure out creatively, all right, how do we dispose of this asset or repurpose it? Make it profitable.
Go find that guy, service it. Yeah. In a lot of dealerships, not a lot. I shouldn't say, you probably have better insight into this than I do. Some very, very, I'm going to say people I respect. There's many people out there that I don't know. In this one case, this dealership is a major brand dealership, major earth moving brand. They feel a little whipsawed by the OEM because people get to sit behind desks in Timbuktu, like I did, by the way, and make decisions and just say, you can be right on paper, but wrong in the field.
Yeah.
That's truth. And you're not serving the field through capital allocation. Capital means our money's invested together, like that cat HBR story you read.
Yeah.
So they have shifted. Now they've kind of, in my mind, I've heard this twice, two major brands. We're just going to keep this OEM in their box. They're going to do what they do. And we're going to get into used equipment and rental. Even rental, though, the OEM wants to put the pause on it, right? And tell them how to price the asset. And it's like different floor planning, in essence, in controlling the price of the rental, which restricts their ability to compete, right? It may be good on a presentation. It clearly works as a business plan,
right?
But it breaks down in its individual application.
Right.
So they're growing their used equipment book and doing rebuilds, buying and selling for their own account. And it's smart, but if you really think about it, it's like somebody leaving a marriage, right?
Yeah.
Beginning to wander a little bit. Maybe they don't come home on time. They're not doing anything funny, right? So they're beginning to, in their mind, check out of the relationship.
Got it. Yeah.
Easy to reverse that. That's the good news.
You've managed teams of 25 plus people, supported 400 plus salespeople. When you look at top performers versus the bottom performers, what separates the highest from the lowest performers?
The highest performers would be, they drill into the law of small numbers. They're identifying, stupid as it sounds, the 15 people that would do 62% of their business. And they're enlisting their boss's support and their entire company's support to help them secure their business. Those are the ones that have succeeded. There's an element of vulnerability.
So it's really not just what the salesperson does. It's how well they're supported.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So team effort.
So it's shared outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when you ask for help, you usually get it.
Yeah. Especially if the concept that you're bringing to bear is one that you are convinced is going to generate a positive yield.
Right.
So now all of a sudden the sales guy is no longer selling externally, they're selling internally. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, we have to do that. And it's not just salespeople. I mean, everybody has to sort of create a business case for what they want to achieve. That's how the marketing strategy, which requires some, creative thinking and some ideas and some planning, you still have to get buy-in. I mean, marketing departments just don't have a blank checkbook, and salespeople are the same. You have to get
You
buy-in.
place people into cultures where you whether that new person is joining a team or is he or she a one-person turnaround. I know you know that from the work that you do and the deep knowledge you have and the reputation that you've garnered is, the high-functioning teams that can now bolt on talent.
Yeah.
As Munger, I was reading Munger, a lot of Munger and Buffett stuff this past few days for the only reason Buffett officially retired December 31st.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you hear things, but I had to go look up one where Buffett was referring to Munger. He's like, Charlie's got an in pile, an out pile, and a too hard pile. And I remember Munger saying, how do you feel about turnarounds? He's like, we don't do it. We don't do them. Too hard. And it's very, very hard to turn shit around.
Yeah.
Most turnarounds don't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you place a high functioning person.
It's not efficient. I mean, if you're an outside investor, I mean, it takes a lot of patient capital to be able to handle a turnaround. It can be done. It's just a question of how patient is your capital.
Yep.
And then do you have the measures to be able to, at least on a quarterly basis, look back and say, okay, are we making progress? Is there clear progress here? And if there is, great, then you keep forging ahead. And if the answer is no, well, then you got a decision to make. I'm going to land on this one because we started with the book. You donated book proceeds, or you donate book proceeds to Folds of Honor. Why? Tell us about Folds of Honor and why you chose to dedicate the proceeds from your book to that organization.
Yeah. And I think there's two great charities that I think. One is Folds of Honor, another one's Fisher House Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But Jay, I was traveling. So I was in my early 30s, traveling right around. It was right after 9/11, and I was working for Volvo. Started in 2002, and you'd go in an international terminal, and you'd see the what I call skinny kids. Mm-hmm. Right? Remember when we were skinny kids. Our clothes didn't fit us. And you could see the humility and the sense of resignation. Like you saw it. We all saw it in this country. And these young people, to me, at that time, in many respects, they signed up to get the GI Bill, right? They weren't the alpha males or the alphas. They were folks trying to advance their future, and they signed up.
Their future alpha males.
And we went to war. And I felt in America kept working, right? And I'm going to say they became the invisibles, the 1% who provide our blanket of freedom. But I'm going to say only in I terms, I didn't have enough gratitude or recognition for that level of sacrifice. Meaning these young persons are going truly to defend our freedom. And if I think of that, anybody who would jump to save my life, it would have been my mother before I got married, right? Now my wife would. And so these young people, I feel like it's a raw deal. At least I'm sorry, in I terms, I didn't have enough gratitude for the tremendous amount of sacrifice. They, at the very least, come back with bad memories.
Yeah.
And low pay.
And that's, again, at the very least.
Very least.
Yeah.
And worst cases are you lose an arm or a limb.
Right.
And I felt, and this is something for your clients, I felt compelled. Look at all the stupid shit we spent marketing money on, trade show booths up the wazoo, zillions of dollars that didn't promote the authenticity. And I was just rereading a Volvo presentation. Volvo at the time was changing its brand to where the industry wanted to go, and they called it care. Okay. And we at Volvo Rent started doing cause marketing, and we promote the charity. If you think about how do you market equipment rental, very hard, right? Do you answer my phone? Is it on time? Is it a fair price? Did you call it off rent, right? It basically said, did you do your job well, right? And if you do, I might keep coming back. Very, very hard to compete. People would say it's a relationship business. And you said, what does that relationship be? Well, what if I can't get the credit for that? What if I do deliver on time and my price is fair and I have availability and I respond when you tell me to? But you don't associate that. So we used cause marketing to build more authentic relationships with clients. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was great for the customer.
Everybody
It was
wins.
great. Everybody won.
Yeah.
All the way around.
Yeah.
So at Volvo Rents, we did a ton of marketing with Folds of Honor. Very patriotic industry, as you know. Today, my wife and I support another great organization called Fisher House Foundation, where they're the invisibles. They are think of Ronald McDonald houses. They build the homes where, essentially hotels where families can stay for free while their loved one is getting long-term care. So it's very deep in my heart. And I remember there was a woman, you can think about politics like royalty. And there was a woman named Lynn. Her husband happened to be the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And she was volunteering at an awesome event called Warrior Games. It's the Paralympics for wounded veterans. And I see this woman, like a lot of politicians will let you know that they're the big person on campus. And a lot of the ex-people in government will let you know that. She didn't. And I was watching target shooting with her. And by the way, target shooting is like, these were not bullets. These were air pistols. So it wasn't fun to watch. Let me say that. And she was, because it's like a silent video game.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't see it. It's 100 yards away from you.
Yeah.
And you're sitting in the stands. And I said, and Lynn was there clapping and celebrating. And I said, why do you do this? And she said, it's a metaphor. It's a building block of how we care for each other. If I just do that for one person, they'll take it home. And I've seen that work, Jay. So to me, it is, you started with a prayer. To me, it's got it work.
Yeah. And
America truly has boundless capacity for renewal. We can get out of some of these fights. We are not victim to a recession or tariffs. I believe the industry can work better together. I believe the industry can circle its wagons and look at expenses that are imposed on them, almost like taxes from external vendors, and challenge them. And if the explanation is too long, then consider it a lie. Consider it a lie.
Yeah.
Are your vendors truly serving you? Are they giving you more efficiency? Are they helping you cut costs? Are they serving the tip of the spear in the field?
It goes back to that article again. Are you easy to do business with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's fix it. Let's fix it one at a time. We only play a very small role. Your company plays a huge role in placing the culture and giving wings to these cultures.
Yeah.
So you do profound things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wish that we could take more credit. I think really it comes down to the leadership of the organization. I use this metaphor to describe a business is like a fish tank, and the water in your fish tank is your culture. So if you have dirty water in your fish tank, it doesn't matter if I do a good job of bringing you a healthy fish to put in that tank, it's not going to thrive. And so I can contribute to some extent, but we do a much better job. Or let me say it this way. The return on investment is better for businesses who are committed to keeping their fish tank clean. And we don't always know who that is. A lot of clients that we work with, we worked for them or with them for the first time, and we don't know. So I wish we had a bit more influence on that. Certainly, I think we have more influence on it when we're placing the top dog, so to speak. Nick, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you and learn how they can, stop guessing and make sense of their data so that they can actually begin to make educated, build educated strategies and plans to improve their business, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, Jay, I want to make sure I tell you and time again, thank you for being a blessing. From a distance, I admire you and read your work. So reading something I want to say this morning. My cell phone's best.
Okay.
There's no reason. If I can't answer, I promise I'll get back within an hour.
How does somebody get your cell phone? Is that on your website?
I'll give it to you. It's 828-279-4869.
Awesome. And then BiltData.ai is your website, right?
Correct. Yep.
And that's BiltData.ai.
Yeah.
Got it.
And if somebody wants a picture of Don's rock, that's where this company is built on. It is built on a prayer to serve. I mean that genuinely. And I can say, I don't know where that's going to go. But the best experiences for me, Jay, in building this company have been seeing the amount of prayer, whether it's you or Jeff or Roger or Mike or Robert, or I can go city to city to city, or Terry. Yeah. And it's so interesting to me to hear. I don't even want to call it a silent movement because that almost implies that it's
intentional,
not there. Matt, a guy named Matt.
Yeah. I've
heard the best prayers wherever I've gone, today being one of them. This industry works together and supports each other.
It's one of the things I love about this industry.
It's huge.
Yeah. I mean, it's, there's a lot of evidence of people's faith. One of my favorite scriptures is Jeremiah 29:13. A lot of people stick to Jeremiah 29:11. But 29:13 is the same as Deuteronomy 4:29. And that is, when we seek the Lord with our whole heart, that's when we find him. And I do feel like there are a lot of people in this industry who do seek the Lord with their whole heart and do make work a form of worship. They are his reflection in, not just at home, but in their business. Like I said, it's one of the things I really have enjoyed so much about being in this industry. And, you're an example of that. So thanks for that.
Yeah. No, it's, I wish, what's kind of cool is it's fun to talk about scales lifting off my eyes. That has been the true joy for me. It's, I walked into this one guy's office in Dallas and he had the beautiful picture of his son atop his desk. And it was like an inviting picture, not your typical iPhone picture. Right. It was like an engaging picture of a young man holding a baseball bat. I don't know. Tell me about your son. And he's like, he's so-and-so and he passed. And he's with the Lord now. Not one hesitation of sadness. Of course, I mean, and he was telling me the story about his son and how his son was so full of the Lord.
Yeah.
As whether he was 11 or 12 or 13, I want to say he was 9, 10, 11. And just the whole unraveling of the story. There was a senior executive at another company. Every meeting he goes into, he says, Lord, put the words in my mouth, what to say. And he says, if I'm not given them, I don't speak. And it's so interesting to me, the amount of shared values in this industry that maybe are revealed in these conversations, and maybe there's more to reveal. That's been the blessing to me.
Yeah.
So thank you for.
Well, it's been great. Thank you for making time to chat with me, sharing your wisdom.
Vice versa.
Thanks for listening to Heavy Hitters. And if you found today's episode valuable, don't forget to follow and share. Now stay focused and stay tuned.